In this section of the online course, we're going to look at hip mobility. And it's worth at this point mentioning not only is it important to get the hips loose, but also we're going to show you ways to strengthen the hips to stop the immobility coming back again. Now, hip mobility can be very important to people who sit at a desk all day, who drive long distances, or who travel a lot, because just the very nature of sitting will cause the hip to tighten up and become stiff and very uncomfortable. Exercise 1 in the hip mobility section is called hip dislocations. A lot of time when people get up out of a seat after sitting for a long time, you hear them say, "Oh God, my hips are stiff," and they probably are stiff. So this exercise is almost like a homemade traction that they can do to really loosen up the area between the hips and get them nice and loose so they don't feel that stiffness and tightness. So what you need for this exercise is a fairly heavy duty band and some type of secure surface. You hook the band around something nice and secure, then you step into the band, pull the band up over the top of the hips. So that band is sitting over the top of my hips and round the lower back. Then you walk backwards to create tension in the band. When you feel like you have enough tension in the band, you sit back carefully. The band sits on the top of the hips in between the legs. We keep the legs bent, we lie back, and then the breathing becomes an important part of this exercise. Every time we exhale while we're lying on our back, we just let the band take the tension and really pull our hips towards the fixed structure. So as I exhale, we'll find a pull on the hip region. Exhale again. And then really relax the upper body, and the hips will pull, or the band will pull on the hip bone, pull it towards the structure. And I recommend you do this exercise for 2.5 to 3 minutes. If you want to increase the intensity of the stretch, we move further back. If we want to decrease the intensity, we can slide forward. And this exercise is called the hip dislocations. The second exercise in the hip mobility section is the hip flexor mobilization. Due to prolonged sitting, incorrect biomechanics, the hip flexors can become very tight. What happens in this case is, if it becomes too tight, it'll tend to pull the body forward, and then you're not in your natural position. So this next exercise, using the band, is a great exercise in stretching, mobilizing, and strengthening the hip flexor region. We take a fairly heavy duty band, we attach it to a solid structure. We then step into the band and we loop the band round the glute or the buttock on the left side. We walk back holding the band till we create real tension in the band, and then we drop the back leg on a 90 degree angle. We then get the front leg also in a 90 degree angle, and the band creates the tension that will pull on the front hip flexor on my left side while I stay in this static position. I'll hold this position for 30 to 45 seconds for a general stretch. And then to enhance and increase the stretch, I'll raise the left hand above the head and slightly lean to my right side. Again, this should be done for 30 to 45 seconds. And the third part of this stretch is I can use my left hand, if required, to push against the left buttock, again creating even more of a stretch and more mobilization of that left hip flexor. So the three elements are normal static at 90, hand above the head, and the final part pushing the glute or the buttock forward. And each of these three parts should be done for 30 to 45 seconds. Exercise number 3 in the hip mobility series is leg raises. So in the first 2 exercises, we've shown you how to get the hips nice and loose and nice and mobile. Now it's very, very important that we actually strengthen the hips so it doesn't return to the old stiff ways that it was. So to do this is an exercise called straight leg raises. And all it involves is, first of all, is making sure that we're sitting in an upright position. We're sitting on our bone tail. We have the leg that we're working is nice and straight. And what we do is we just lift it up and over any type of object. And what this is doing here is it's actually strengthening my hip flexor that in the previous 2 videos we showed you how to get nice and loose. So once you're in that nice, loose, relaxed state, then you can build in some strengthening exercises. When you become competent at a certain height, to get that progression, all you do is exact same exercise and just increase the height. And when you try this at home, you'll find a really good strengthening element in your hip flexor. Now I change legs on the left leg, so I'm sitting up on my bone tail, lift the leg up and over, back over. When we get good at a certain height, we can increase. And I would recommend starting off, you do 8 to 10 reps 3 times at a low height. And then eventually we can work up to a really good height that's really going to challenge the hip flexor. Like so, and like so. So this is a straight leg exercise. The 4th exercise in the hip mobility section that we're going to show you on this online course is called what we call a hip flow sequence. The reason why we do this and why we call it this is each exercise lends itself to the following exercise as a progression. So by doing it in this flow and doing it in the sequence, we get a better fascia release and a better neural response, which will loosen up the hips going forward. The first exercise in the hip flow sequence is called leg swings. It involves the athlete holding onto a secure apparatus, standing on the left leg first. Make sure the body is nice and tall so we're not slouched. We have a real strong stance on our left leg while we pick our right leg up off the floor. And what we do here is a series of progressive swings, trying to keep the torso stable, and each swing will gradually increase the range of motion of that leg, both forward and backwards. So as I swing forward, I'm getting a stretch in my hip flexor, but importantly, as I swing back, I'm getting a stretch in my glute and my lower back. And we'll do those swings for 20 on the right, and then 20 on the left. So remember to keep the torso as stable as you can, nice and tall. And as we're going through the swings, we're progressively getting higher as we go forward and push back hard when we go backwards. And that's the leg swings. The second exercise in the hip flow sequence is a quad stretch while reaching with the opposite arm. In the first exercise, we did a dynamic or a ballistic type of stretch. This now goes into more of a static stretch to enhance the stretching process in the hip flexor. So to start this exercise, with the opposite leg that we're going to stretch, hold on to something stable. In my case, my right hand. I then take my left foot, pull it up towards my backside, stand on my right leg, make sure that my knees are close together, and the heel of my foot, if I can, is pulling towards my buttock on my left side. And I'll hold that stretch for 30 to 40 seconds. And when the time's up, I'll then just change sides. Stable structure with my left hand. Pull my right foot to my right buttock. Keep the body nice and tall, chest up. And again, hold that stretch for 30 to 40 seconds. The third exercise in the hip flow sequence is called the 90-90 knee bend with side bend. How we set this exercise up is we have our front leg at a 90 degree angle. So 90 degrees from my torso to my thigh and 90 degrees from my thigh to my shin. We're going to stretch the left hip flexor first. So we place the right hand in the crease of the hip of the right leg. And then we bring the left hand over the head and lean slightly to the left, which creates a real advanced stretch in my left hip flexor. I'm going to hold this static stretch position for 30 to 45 seconds. Upon then, I change legs. So I put my left leg into that 90-90 position, left hand in the crease of the left hip. I'm stretching my right hip flexor, so the right hand comes over the head, leaning slightly towards my left hand side, and again, that really enhances the stretch in my right hip flexor. So this is called the 90-90 kneeling stretch. The fourth exercise in this hip flow sequence is called on back in and out stretch, or even you can call it like a windscreen wiper stretch because your legs perform the action of a windscreen wiper. What we do here is we start the stretch, and this is a very dynamic stretch. We lie on our back, feet to start off on the floor, and our knees are bent. Hands at the side, and then we just push both knees to the left, back to the start, and right over to the right. Right to the start again, and back over to the left. And if you think about a windscreen wiper on a car or on a lorry, it's the same action what it does. And this is a real dynamic stretch, reaching into the hip flexor. But now I want to show you how to enhance that stretch. So we go to the left. So we take the left foot and pin the right knee even further towards the floor for 2 or 3 seconds. Both knees to the right. Now this time pin the left knee with the right foot into the floor for a few seconds. And this little technique enhances this stretch quite a lot. We have a bigger range of motion, and we're getting the hip flexor to stretch a wee bit more. And that's on back in and out stretch. The final part of the hip flow sequence is called a single leg glute bridge. To set up for the exercise, we lie flat on our back, put our feet flat on the floor, and we bend both knees. We're going to do the right side first. So we lift up the left leg, ensuring that both thighs are parallel. And then to start the exercise, we push up through the right heel and push the hips right up towards the ceiling, ensuring that we have a straight line from the knee to the hip to the shoulder, and then we lower. We'll do 12 reps on our right side, and then we'll change legs, again ensuring that the right and left thigh are parallel throughout the exercise. So to commence the left side, we push up to the left leg, and again ensuring there's a straight line from the knee, the hip to the shoulder, lower, push up, and repeat this 12 times. And this is a single leg glute bridge.